This
in the bot.
conference will now be recorded.
So this was the multi-turn prompt, and like it's quite evident from these features, the most common use case for this QnAMaker is to be used in a chatbot. So wherein this QnAMaker knowledge base serves as the data source for the chatbot. So the bot section is a different one. So there are separate resources to create the web app bot, but they can use this QnAMaker service and its knowledge base so that whenever a question is asked to the bot, it returns the answers from this knowledge base. So that bot would just serve as the medium through which users communicate against this QnAMaker service. So now let me jump over to the browser and show how we can easily set it up in our environment. So if I go to this QnAMaker.ai portal, so this is the my Q&A portal and my one-stop location that I need to go to whenever I need to make any changes to my knowledge base or I need to create a new knowledge base. So at the top you'll see there are two tabs here. So one is the My Knowledge Bases and another is the Create a Knowledge Base. So if I click on the My Knowledge Bases, so this would actually list down all the knowledge base that I have created under my account. And if I go to this Create a Knowledge Base, let me click on this one now. So this would actually give me a list of steps that I need to follow to create a new knowledge base in my account. So if I go back to the presentation, so since we said this is part of the Azure Cognitive Service, so setting up this QnAMaker in our account would require an Azure subscription because the following resources need to be created for this service to be used. So first and most important is the QnAMaker Cognitive Services instance. So this is the main service through which we get all these QnAMaker features. Then we have an app service plan that consists of an app service. And next up, we have the application insights. So this is an optional resource. You can either enable it or disable it, but this is used for your logging and monitoring stuff. And lastly, we have the search service. So the search service is the main, you can say the search index that would store the list of all these Q&A pairs. So how many knowledge bases you can create in a Q&A service and how much content you can add to each of those knowledge bases. So all that depends on the search service pricing tier that you select. So later on, we'll see what are the different options available and how we can choose one of those options to configure this QnAMaker. And like since these are Azure resources, so these are easily scalable and can be scaled as per the changing demands. So for instance, if you initially decide that you create some free tier for some of these resources, that is the lowest tier with uh, the minimum available specs. But later on, you think that your service is being used by more people and you need to scale it out, so then you can easily do that using these resources. So these resources are very easily scalable and their pricing tier can be upgraded anytime you want. Okay, so now let's get back to this. So creating a knowledge base. So for this first step, it says to create a QnA service in Microsoft Azure. So if I click on this button, so this would actually open the Azure portal for me. So wherein I'll need to provide the details about the QnAMaker service that I need to create. So the resources that we just saw, the 5 resources for the QnAMaker service. So those resources would be created through this screen that you see here. Just a second. I think I'm logged in with a different account. Okay, let me refresh this page and we'll click on this again. Okay, so this is the screen wherein I need to put all the details for my QnA resources. So first up, I'll need to give a name to the service. So let me give one. So then I need to select a subscription. So I have my Visual Studio Enterprise subscription selected here. And then I need to select a pricing tier. So here you can see there are two options. One is for the F0 and the S0. So the F0 pricing tier that you see, so this is the free tier and S0 is the standard tier. So for the free tier, you won't get any cost associated to it, but there will be some limitations as to how many total transactions you can do against this service and how many documents you can actually store. For example, how many URLs you can add or how many custom sheets you can supply through which you would extract the QnA pairs. So we'll see later on how that works. But these are some of the limitations that there are with the free tier. For now, I can select the standard tier here. Then next up, I have the resource group. So I can whether select an existing one or create a new one. So let me create a new one here. Then I have the resource group location. So I can select any location here. Let me select West Europe. Then next I have this Azure Search pricing tier. So like I said before, so the search service is the search index, and that decides how many knowledge bases you can create against a service, and how many question and answer pairs you can add to each of these knowledge base. Basically, how much data this knowledge base can store. So all such data related things depend on the pricing tier that you select here. So here also the most basic one we have is the free tier. So this comes with 3 search indexes, and then we have the basic tier which comes with 15, and so on it gets increasing. So the basic formula here is that for the free tier with the 3 index search index, so I can create two databases, sorry, the two knowledge bases. And for the basic tier with 15 indexes, I can create 14 knowledge bases. So how whatever be the number of indexes in a search service, so one less than that is the number of knowledge bases you can create against this service. So for now, I'll select the basic tier. So this has 15 indexes. That means I can create 14 knowledge bases in this. Then I need to select a location for this search service. So let me also choose this as West Europe. Then this is the app name, my app service name. So this is usually the same as the QnA service the QnA service name that we specified at the top. So this means that a new web app would be created for this with this name, and a new app service plan would also be created. So here it doesn't offer us the choice to create the app service plan from this screen, but it says that default standard pricing tier app service plan would be created. But we can modify it if we want to upgrade it or downgrade it from the by visiting the app service plan through the Azure portal itself. And then my website location, basically my app service location. So let me also choose this as West Europe. And then the app insights. So either like I said, this is an optional feature. So either you can enable it or disable it. But for logging and monitoring purpose, it is usually recommended to enable this, because later on we'll be also seeing some of the analytics options that we have for this. And the location for this app insights. So West Europe. So that's it. So I have entered all the details that the screen requires to create this service. And now I can just hit create. So I would be clicking on this create, but since these resources can take a couple of minutes to spin up. So what I'm going to do is, so I have clicked on create here, but I'm going to be using an existing one, an existing Q&A service that I already have. So let me just check my account here. So that way I can save some time, because otherwise I'll have to wait for all these resources to spin up. Okay, so let me sign in with my different account here as well. Okay, so if I click on create a Q&A service here, oh sorry, this we have done. Okay, so this was the first step that we just did, creating a Q&A service. But like I said, it can take some time for those resources to spin up. So we'll be using an existing Q&A service that I have in my tenant to create a new knowledge base here. So this takes us to the second step. So here we need to select the service. So first of all, I need to select my AD. So this is the one. Then my subscription name. And here I need to select the QnA service. So this AZ QnA service is the one that I've created. So if I show you in my Azure portal here, so this is the resource group that I had created earlier. So here these top 5 resources that you see here. So these are the ones that get created when we complete the first step of creating the QnA service. So like we saw in the presentation, we have this cognitive service resource here, and then the app service plan and the app service, the application insights which I had enabled, and lastly the search service. So I've selected this AZ QnA service, and then there is the language, so I'll let it be as English here. So for the third step, I need to name my knowledge base. So this would be the name through which my knowledge base would be visible. So let me give this. So I've given this a name here. And in the step 4, it asks me to populate my KB. So this brings us to the options available for adding data to our knowledge base. So you can think of, there are 3 basic options through which you can feed more data to your knowledge base. So one is through the URL that we see here. So here it expects a URL of any public facing page that has a set of frequently asked question and answers enabled. So like you must have seen, many sites have this particular page of frequently asked questions, wherein they have some kind of an accordion view or something like that, and they have listed all the question and answers there. So if you specify such a URL here, so then the service would automatically extract all the Q&A pairs from that page. So this is one option, to add a URL so that it extracts the Q&A pairs from that. The next option is through the file name. So this actually expects any PDF or doc or comma separated value or TSV or Excel file. So if you have any such sheet maintained wherein you have these question and answers added to it, so then you can simply upload that file and it would automatically extract the Q&A pairs from there as well. So for now, I'm going to try this URL feature here. So let me search for Office 365 FAQ. So like you can see here, so there are a lot of question and answers added here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this URL and add this here. So now we'll see later on that all the question and answers from this URL would be automatically added to our knowledge base. And lastly, it gives us the chit chat option. So this chit chat option basically just adds some very common small talk questions. So like hello and how are you, so that the service knows how to respond to some such very simple small talk questions. And you can even select what kind of response do you want, like what kind of personality you want to give to this service, like whether you want professional responses to such questions or you want friendly or witty. So you can select any of these. So for now I'll select this friendly option, and that's it. So we have filled in all the details that it requires to create our knowledge base, and I'll click on create your KB now. So like it says, this is currently crawling the content and extracting the Q&A pairs from the URL that we added, as well as adding that chit chat option Q&A pairs to our knowledge base. So this shouldn't take a lot of time, just a minute. So right now we explored two options through which we can add data to our knowledge base. So one was through the URL, and the second one was through uploading a file. So there is also a third option, and that is actually the simplest one that we'll see very soon now. Okay, so our knowledge base got created here. So it says 114 Q&A pairs were added. So here, if you see the source, so this is the URL that we had added, and you can see it automatically added all the question and answers from that URL right here. So the format that you see, if you notice, so this is the markdown format, so that if even if there are any hyperlinks or let's say images that you want to add to your knowledge base, so you can easily add that using the markdown format. So it's a very common text format that is used in many sites, like if you work on GitHub as well, the readme file that you see there, that is also in the markdown format. So using that, you can easily add any hyperlinks or images to this as well. So this was one source through which the question and answer pairs have been added. And the next one is the Q&A chit chat friendly. So this is the one, this is the chit chat option that we had selected. So here you can see a lot of questions have been added here with some responses. So these are the small talk question and answers that we added. So our knowledge base has right now successfully extracted all the information that we wanted it to add. And now we look at the third option that I was talking about. So if you see, there is this add Q&A pair option here. So if I click on this, so it would just give me a text box here for the question and answer. So I can just simply type in my question and answer manually here, and I can add those to this knowledge base as well. So for example, let me type a question here. So you can see I've added a question and answer here. And apart from this, I can also add alternative phrasing for this question, so that even if multiple similar questions are asked, so they return the same response. So I can type in here. So now if any of these questions are asked, so the response would be this one. So just like that, I have added a custom question and answer to my QnAMaker knowledge base. And now I can save this. So this save and train button would actually update your knowledge base with the changes, with the new Q&A pairs, or if we have edited or removed any Q&A pairs, it would save those changes. And once these have been saved, so there is also this test panel right here in the portal itself. And here I can check how my service is behaving. So I ask the question that I just added to this knowledge base, and it returns me this response. So that means our knowledge base, our QnA service is working fine now, and we can go ahead and publish this so that it can be used in other applications as well. So that's it. It says our service has been deployed and it is ready to be used now. So let's now see how we can start creating a bot and use this service there. So if I go back to the presentation, so right now what we have done is we have successfully created a Q&A service in our tenant, and we have created a knowledge base in it. Now we need to create a web app bot that would actually use that knowledge base as its data source. So this brings us to the web app bot section of this presentation. So if I ask what is a web app bot? So a web app bot is simply an Azure bot service bot that is deployed to an Azure App Service web app. So at its core, it's a web app bot. It's just like a normal web app that you have running in one of your app service plan, but it has the extended features of the Azure bot service. So what happens is that when you create a new web app bot, so a new web app would be created for you in Azure, and apart from this, a separate web app bot resource would also be created. So your web app would be the normal app service that you have, like a normal web app or web API as well. So that belongs to that same family of the Azure app service. But the web app bot resource that gets created, so that has the extended features of the Azure bot service. So using that, you can actually connect this bot to various devices. You can consume it through in other applications, like you have Teams or Skype or Cortana, basically through any medium through which you want to connect to this. So that is actually done through channels. So later on we'll also see what are channels and how we can configure it. So like I said, since it's a web app, it's an Azure web app, so it has to be in a single language. So that means like at the back end, the app that gets deployed to your app service. So either it has to be a C# app or it has to be Node.js. So since we'll be creating a no code chatbot here, so we won't actually be coding anything here, but at the back end, the language of code that we want this bot to be deployed in, that we'll have to select. So that we'll just select through the portal, we'll see later on, but we have to choose a language. And then later on, if we decide that we want to make some changes to the code that is running in our Azure bot app, so we want to download that source code and make some changes and test it on our local environment first. So that can be very easily done. So there is the option available to download the source code of the bot that is running. We'll see how we can do that. And like I said, so the bot service enables us to deploy this web app bot once in a web app and then consume it across multiple channels. So this is done through the channels feature, wherein we can configure a channel to be created for each such applications like Slack, Teams, or Skype, or any custom client-side application that we have in which we want to use that bot. So these are the Azure resources that would get created once we create a web app bot. So like I said, the app service. So this would be the web app to which our bot would be deployed, to which our bot code would be deployed. And then we have the web app bot. So this is the resource that gives us the extended features of the Azure bot service. And lastly, here as well, we have the application insights. So this is once again optional, but for monitoring and logging purpose, it is recommended to use this. So let me now jump back to my browser. So this was the knowledge base that we just created. And if you see once I publish this knowledge base, so it gives me this option to create a bot here. So if I click on this here, so this would once again open the Azure portal screen, wherein now it would ask me some details about the web app bot that I'm going to create. So it has auto-populate. You can see it has auto-populated some of the values here. So like the bot handle. So this is the first one. The bot handle. This is the unique ID of our bot. So by which we would actually recognize our bot. So this doesn't have to be the same as the display name, and later on you can change the display name of your bot very easily, but this one has to be a unique name here. So we'll let it be as is. Then once again I have my subscription, so I've selected the enterprise subscription here. The resource group, so I would add this to the existing resource group in which my QnA service exists, but you can create a new one as well. Then location, so let this be as West Europe as well. And then the pricing tier. So here as well, we have two pricing tiers available. So one is the F0 and the S1. So the F0 is the free pricing tier and the S1 is the standard one. So here the limitations that we have in the F, F tier is with regards to how many messages you can send in some of the premium channels. So there are basically two types of channels for this bot service. So one is the standard and the other is the premium. So for the standard, there are no limitations, but for the premium, there are only 10,000 premium messages that you can send within a month for the free tier. Whereas for the standard tier, you can send more than 10,000, but there would be a cost associated with it. I think it's around $0.5 per thousand messages. So you can select any of these. So for now, I'll select the standard one. And just the premium channel, like one of the channel that I'm aware of, the custom client side application channel that we'll be using later on. So that comes under the premium tier. And then the app name. So this has to be unique. So this is also similar to this bot handle that we had selected earlier, but it has something appended to it to make it unique here. So we'll let it be as is. And here it gives me the option to choose the SDK language for my bot. So like I said, it has to be either C# or Node.js. So I can select that here and it would automatically create the bot using that code template. So I'll let it be as C#. And here you see this QnA auth key. So this is auto-populated for me. And this keys will be used to authorize the requests from my bot to our knowledge base, because like we said, we are configuring this bot to use our knowledge base as its data source. So it needs some key to establish the connection between itself and the knowledge base. So this would be the key that would be used to establish that connection. And if I go back to my knowledge base publish screen, so you will see in this, there is this authorization endpoint key. So if you notice, this endpoint key is the same that is populated here. So this is the authorization key that would help us to communicate against this knowledge base. Then I have this app service plan. So this would be the same that I already created here. And lastly, I have this application insights, like I can enable it or disable it. So I would keep this enabled and select West Europe as its location. And then there is one option for the Microsoft App ID and password. So if I click on this, so there are two options here. Either I can let it be as auto create app ID and password, or I can create a new. So what happens is when you create this web app bot, so a new app registration would take place in your Azure AD. So that would be actually used to, to connect your bot to all these various channels to basically authenticate the user, like how this bot would be running in your Azure subscription. So for this, a new app registration needs to be created. So either I can let it be as automatically create, or if I have manually created some app registration, then I can just enter the details for it by clicking on this create new. Because sometimes you don't have access to create an app registration directly from here. So you might need your platform team or somebody else to create that new app registration for you. And in that case, you can just manually enter the ID and password that they provide you here. So for now, I'll just select this auto create option. And that's it. So I have mentioned all these resources, all the details of the bot resources, and I'll click on create here. Okay, so it says that the requested bot ID is not available. So I'll need to update this. So it would take a little while to actually create these bot resources. So for the sake of time, so here I can show you the existing one that I have here. So when these resources get created, so these are the three resources that would get created here. So the app service, the web app bot, and the application insights. So if I go to this web app bot resource here, so this would be the screen um, of your Azure bot, of your Azure web app bot. So here in the left, one option you have in the build. So if I click on it, so this is the option to download the bot source code that I was talking about earlier. Like this would actually download a zip file of the project that is running in this web app, so that if you want to make any changes to it, or if you want to test it locally, you can do that. And then I have this test in web chat feature. So this would actually enable me to test my web app bot, like how my bot is running right within the portal here. So this gives us this small window here. So I can check it out here. I can just send a message and it is responding correctly. So it is giving me this response. So this was the response that I had added to my previous knowledge base against which I created this web app bot. So now we know that our bot is working fine. So we can proceed to the next section now. So right now what we have done is we have created a Q&A service, we have created a knowledge base, and we have created a bot that uses that knowledge base. But till now we are only using that bot within the portal itself through the test in web chat feature. Now let's say we want to consume this bot through in other application, like we have Teams. So in Teams you must have seen there is a bot option that you can add as an app to your team. Or let's say we have any custom client side application on which we want to use this bot, so that the connecting to all these application is done through channels. So channel is just a connection between our bot and other such communication apps. So there are some channels available for the web app bot that will see what channels are available. So we can very easily configure those channels through our Azure portal itself, and then it provides us a unique ID, and that ID we can use to use our bot in these other applications. So we'll see here, so some of the services available to connect the bot to are like Slack, Cortana, Teams, or any custom client side application. So the direct line channel is the channel that is used to connect the bot to a custom client side application using the secret key. So this one is a premium channel through which because and we saw earlier that there were some restrictions in the free tier as to how many messages you can send against this premium channel. So this is one of those premium channels. So but since we have selected standards, so we should be good to go. But even for the free tier, so there are 10,000 messages per month. So that is also quite a lot, which shouldn't raise any issue. So now let me jump back to our portal and we'll see how we can configure these channels. So if you look at this option here, channels, so you will see there is this web chat channel that is already running for me. So this is by default, and this channel is the one that is used in this test in web chat feature, as well as if you want to render this bot in an iframe on an HTML page. So that you can do using this channel. But the one that we would be exploring today is the direct line channel. So here you can see in this add a featured channel, there are these three are the featured channels that they have added for the Cortana, Direct Line, and the Microsoft Teams. Other than this, there are also some other channels like we have for Skype, Slack, Facebook, and some other popular applications like Twilio and Telegram. So for now, I'll configure the Direct Line channel here. So I just need to click on this. And this would give me this secret key here. So if I click on this, so this is a secret key that I can use to uh, consume this web app bot in any custom client side application that I've developed here. So if I just copy this and I click on done here. So just like that, we have configured a direct line channel to be used for our bot. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a custom client-side application that I have. So I have developed a custom client-side application for SharePoint. So I'll be using that now. Okay, so here is a custom web part that I've developed in SharePoint, and this web part would actually render that chatbot within this window. So there is this option that I've added to add a direct line channel. So here I can just paste that secret key and then save my page. So now it gives me this window with this text box and button. So let me check this if it's working or not. So you can see it, the bot is responding now. Okay, so we have configured the direct line channel to be used in a custom client-side application. So this one I've developed for SharePoint, but if you have any other custom application that you've written in Node.js or C# or any language basically, so then you can configure that using the direct line channel secret key. So this was the way through which we can consume this bot in other applications. Now for the last section, let me show some analytics options that we have available for this. So if I go to my QnA service here, for the application insights of the QnA service that we created in the first step. So here we have this logs option. So against this application insights, you can run some really insightful queries that give you very useful results as to how much, like for example, like how much traffic there is coming against this service, and how is the service responding, like what are the most number of unanswered questions, or how many questions are actually causing a delay in the response to be displayed. So for that, for two such scenarios, I've written some queries here. So this is for the total traffic. So this query you can easily write, it's in custom query language. So if I click on run here, so this would give me this chat count as to how much traffic is actually being consumed against this service. And then I have this unanswered questions query as well. So like this would give me the response as to how many questions are actually being unanswered. So like this is one question that I asked this service once and it couldn't find any answer for it. So the score is also displayed, like how much score was evaluated for this. Because when the QnA service works in the background, so for every question that it encounters, it generates a answer score. So let's say if it finds a high score for an answer, like it finds a question that is quite similar to the one that we have asked. So in that case, the score would be pretty high. So then it would return that. But if you ask a question that it is not very much aware about, so then the score would obviously be low because it is not exactly sure whether this is the answer that the user is looking for or not. So on the basis of that, it assigns a score to each of the question. So like I said, this question has a low score because there was no answer specific to this question. Okay, so I guess that's all I had for this session. So if you would like to connect with me using any of these channels, feel free to do so. So So I'm pretty active on Twitter, LinkedIn, or GitHub itself. So for any queries, you can reach out to me. So now I'll be happy to take up any question and answers that you might have. So now might be a good time for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so one question is to explain how to configure it in SharePoint. Okay, so what I had here, I have a SharePoint. Okay, so I have a SharePoint web part here. It's a SharePoint Framework web part. So it is actually an open source web part, but I made some customizations to it. So let me show you the link for that as well. So this URL is the location for this source, for the source code for this. It's SPFX sample web part called the React bot framework. So using this, you can use this in your application, but I made some changes to it. So in this link, actually, you will find all the details as to how you can, install it on your system and add it to your SharePoint site, and then how it is working and all those stuff you can find from here. Okay. Custo query, does it use CustoDB in backend? Not for the DB, but Custo is just the query language that you can use to run against these application insights logs. So it is the language is quite similar to like we have for the SQL. But if I show you once again, so here in this analytics, there is this Microsoft Docs link here to get the analytics on your knowledge base. So like there are various examples of queries that they have here. Like they have this one here, this right here, yeah. So they have a couple of example queries. So these queries are all written in Custo query language. So this is the language that is used to get to run the queries against your Azure Application Insights resource. So like they have this for total 90-day traffic, then total question traffic in a given time period, and user traffic, the latency, and the unanswered questions. So this unanswered questions one was the one that I showed, but it was slightly modified. Like there they have mentioned the score is equal to 0 as a string, but what I did was I converted to a decimal value, because that score can be different as well. It's not necessary that the score would be 0 only for unanswered question, because if you look at the chatbot, so I think by default the score that is configured there, that is 30. So I think if the score is more than 30, then the chatbot would return you the answer. But if it's less than 30, it would consider it as unanswered, because it is not sure whether that is the correct answer or not. So it's not necessary that it would be 0, but it can be less than 30 as well. Okay, how we can configure this to .NET Core apps? So, is this regarding to a custom client-side application in .NET Core? Because I haven't done that as of now, but I think the process would be very similar, because uh, you just need a channel to actually configure to use that in any application. Yes, so actually I haven't done that, but I think it would be pretty straightforward. So I'm sorry I haven't done that, so can't answer that in detail.
Hey Akash, and this is Shubho here. So I just
Yeah.
want to know about like how do I like we are uploading a PDF any docs file in QnA
Yeah.
for question and answer uploading. Okay, so what is the format actually for uploading like setting up the key and value pair for question and answer? So also we can
Uh,
upload the JSON file or XML file. Is that like
No, I don't think the JSON file would work here. But regarding the format, like I get what you are asking. So actually, I tried this before using a TSV file. So there, I just added two columns to that sheet. So one was for the question, and other one was for the answer. So that worked. But the JSON, I didn't see anything JSON mentioned there. They had a couple of formats that they have. Yes, right here. So these are the supported formats for .tsv, PDF, doc, docx, and XLSX. So JSON won't be supported, but there is one other
and
option if
yeah.
you have a JSON. So you can actually also, update this knowledge base using REST API. So there is that option available as well. So if you have any JSON file, and then you can just simply write up some REST API queries to update this.
Okay. And like what is the type of that format?
What format? Sorry.
Like in PDF or docs file, or, how we actually write down that question and answer.
Okay, so if you
It's
just
supposed to be
have
some
any,
format, right?
no, no, yeah, like we saw in this, yes, in this URL, right? So what they have done is they have just added a question, and after that they have added an answer. So your format needs to be
Okay.
same. So like in the doc file, there would be one question followed by an answer, and then it would automatically extract these values from there. So if there are some, if you make some changes to that order, then it might cause issue. Like, for example, you had two questions and then you add one answer. So in that case, it might get difficult for it to identify. But for the straightforward ones, it would work easily. And
Okay.
this one was the REST API option that I was talking about. So there is this QnAMaker REST API v4 available. And using this, there is this update knowledge base option. So here you can see in this Q&A list, they have added a JSON file. So these are all the
Yeah, great.
details that it requires for the ID, answer, source, questions, and metadata. So if you have a JSON, you can update it using this.
Okay. Thank you, Akash.
Can we update Q&A knowledge base using any data source like Excel or CSV? Can you show quick? So unfortunately, I don't have any Excel file on my system right now, so I can't show that. But like I said, it just has to be a two-column layout. But if you see one thing I can show you here. So if you see that chit chat option that we have, that we added earlier on, so that is actually done through a TSV file only. So let me open my knowledge base and show that. So if you see here, this QnA chit chat friendly.tsv. So this is actually added as a TSV file. So this was done through this file only. And apart from this, there are also these options to export this knowledge base to a TSV file, or import the knowledge base if you have any, if you already have any TSV or Excel files, so then you can import that knowledge base from there as well. Will it override previously written knowledge base? Yes. If you import this knowledge base from any other files, so then it would remove the existing ones. Is there a way have to move the Q&A base to a different subscription? So yes, to move this to somewhere else, so you can just like you saw, there was the export option. So you just export this to a TSV, and then you can upload that TSV to your new subscription or your new knowledge base. Could you show me how you configured bot in that custom page? So I don't, let me just, so I think that would be pretty specific to SharePoint itself as to how to configure that bot in custom page. So, but in this URL, you can see all the details, because otherwise I can just give a brief about it. So what you'll do is, so this is the URL of this repo. So you'll clone this and download this onto your local system. Then there are some specific commands to run this SharePoint Framework application. So those are basically gulp commands. So for that, I think you will find information here. Uh, it's actually missing. Okay, so here it is. So like you have the npm install. So once you download this to your local, so you'll need to install some node dependencies using this command, and then you need to gulp serve. So this is a gulp command that you need to run to actually run your bot code. So once you run this, so then you will be able to add this to a SharePoint page, and then there are just some basic properties that have been added to this web part. So you might not see all of these properties in that sample, because these are some that I've actually customized this. So you might not see all of these, but the basic one, the direct line secret, you will see this. So this is just a property for this web part. So you just add it here, and then at the back end, the code would fetch this secret from this property, and it would establish that connection with the bot. Okay, any other questions?
So I believe there is no more questions coming in, and we have left only 2 minutes. So we'd like to thank all of you who have joined. Okay, so one more question is coming in from Sandeep. Akash, would you?
Okay, can show a quick demo on working with source code and republish it back. So I don't think this we will be able to do in 2 minutes to, but let me show how it can be done, because that is a part of the .NET, because I can just show you how we can download that code here. So once again, in the bot code, there is this build option. So if I just click on this download bot source code, so this would actually download a zip file for me of the source code of this bot. So that like earlier, since we selected the C# language for this, so this would be a C# solution that would the .NET a .NET Core solution that would be downloaded to your system. And then for the republishing, so that is actually pretty straightforward, like you do for any other .NET Core app to an Azure App Service. So you download this source code, you open it in Visual Studio, you make the desired changes to it, and then you can just publish that using you have that app service publishing profile itself, because I think that's the easiest option. So if you go to this app service here, so there is this get publish profile option. So this would just download a publish settings file for you. And so once in Visual Studio you have made the changes to your code, so then you just click on publish it, and you select this publishing profile file, and it would automatically publish your bot to this web app, and then your updated changes would be there in the bot. Okay, is it possible to create such bots as part of continuous employee training? For example, here engage the bot, let's say via Teams message to ask employee a few questions to answer. Yes, that can be done. So not just this, but for this bot, you can integrate other services like as well, like you have Lewis, or let's say you have any custom data source against which you also want to run these queries. For example, you have a SQL database, or for example, I have a SharePoint list. So I want the bot to respond to questions against those data sources as well. So that also I can do, but that would involve some custom code to be written. And like you have also asked that you want the bot to ask the employees few question and answers. So in that case, you actually want the bot to trigger the conversation rather than the users triggering the conversation. So that can also be done, but that would require custom code to be written. Then what are different source types we can use to create KB? So like we saw earlier, so it has a couple of I think it was the previous screen. So they have a couple of formats, like we saw the PDF, doc, docx. So if you are uploading a file, so you can upload a file in any of those formats, and it would get the question and answers from there. And apart from this, there's the URL option that we saw earlier, and the other one is through the editorially manually adding question and answer pairs. And lastly, the one that I just showed this, the REST API one. So if you want to automate this process, or you have any JSON of these questions that you want to add, so that you can do using this REST API. So no more questions, I guess. So can we conclude, Kasam?
Yes, Akash, and would like to, for any more questions, like if you have on QnAMaker, so you can directly get connect to Akash, or there is one a book uh, for with the name QnAMaker Service and Azure Bot Framework that is being published by A-Press. So you can also try to get that book. So you will get all this details like how to get this connected with the Teams or Telegram or different social channels or and all those stuffs. Like all these questions would be is being answered in that book. And again, Akash is the social handles of Akash is now displayed, so you can also get connect with him. I believe I will connect with Akash to have another session within somewhat which involves more hands-on kind of like coding and all, which will be a part of the Dear Azure community Azure 2020 series. So stay connected with Dear Azure, so you will come to know all about this upcoming webinars also. And thank you, Akash, for your time. Thank you, everyone who have joined. Uh, thank you for joining before time. A few of the members who have joined at 10 a.m. right now. So because the session was at 10:30, but I saw many of you have joined before time. So the next session would be at 2 p.m. and it will be presented by Mandar Dharmadikari. He's from Australia. He's also a chatbot enthusiast, but he will be explaining more on Azure API management, mostly about Azure functions, serverless functions and all. So looking forward to see you all at 2 p.m. You can use the same link to join, which you have used right now. So thank you for joining. Thank you, Akash.
And thank you, Kasam, and thank you to the Dear
Bye.
Azure community.
Bye.